Danita Love, who is our president, is away on a rolling vacation, and she's actually on a cruise. So I am vice president of NOCCA, Jackie Albers. Those of you I know and have seen many, many times before, and we're so happy to have you with us tonight. We were able to get one of our very strong supporters from downstate who's going to talk to us about the possibility of and the hope. She's not cooperating here. Sue Cave is from the Ohio Municipal League, and she has been there since 1994, so she's much experienced in the ways of Columbus and how to lobby for us. And that's our hope tonight, that she gives us some idea, some direction of where to go, how to do it, and what's coming up. And she's going to tell you a little bit about herself, right? Right? And I give you Sue Cave from the Ohio Municipal League.
I want to thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I want to thank you for inviting me. I got to see some old friends up here that I haven't seen for a while, so this was very nice, and then I got to meet a whole bunch of new people, so I appreciate the invitation. I'm the executive director of the Ohio Municipal League, which is a nonprofit organization comprised of the cities and villages in Ohio. It's a voluntary membership. When the cities and villages join, we have over 700 members from across the state. We treat equally both upstaters and downstaters, because I notice the further away you get from Columbus, you identify yourself as either upstate or downstate. If you're in the central area, you just kind of identify yourself as cities and villages. You don't make that distinction. I've been with the Municipal League for quite some time. I've been the director since 1994, and it has been an interesting ride, I guess is the best way to put it. Have seen several governors, have seen an enormous change in the Ohio General Assembly, part of it due to term limits, part of it due to just plain old elections that seemed to, that before we had the term limits amendment, seemed to provide for term limits in some cases. But now that we do have the constitutional amendment, we see quite a turnover and quite a change from one house to the other. The legislators find that they can move back and forth between the two houses. The issues have changed some, but not a lot. It's interesting if you've been there for a while that many of the issues maybe take a rest for about 10 years and then crop up and come back again. So some sessions there's just not much new that happens. It's just a retread from previous years. I was asked to come and talk to you tonight about what used to be one of my favorite subjects, and it's less of a favorite subject now, it's more of a challenge, and that's state funding for local governments and what can municipalities expect. And so that is kind of what I want to concentrate on. I do want to tell you, or ask you, I guess is a better term, to, after this election, it will be time, and during the whole election process, get to know your state legislators and impress upon them the good work that you do at the local level, whether that be at the county level or whether that be, for most of the rest of you, at the municipal level. Municipalities, counties, even townships provide a wide variety of very basic services. Now, some of them aren't very exciting, but they are services that a lot of residents and a lot of businesses want. You want your streets You want your local streets in good shape, you want the potholes fixed, you want the curbs and gutters fixed, you want your water and sewer to meet EPA standards, and you especially want to have water and sewer, a very expensive service to give to your residents. You want to have safety, enhances the quality of life in your community. And all levels of local government provide some type of safety service. In the cities and villages, it's your police and fire and your EMTs. In the counties, it's the sheriff's department and the court system that lend themselves to that. So you provide some of the basics. You provide the things that the state of Ohio cannot and does not provide to the residents of the state. So you're important folks, and you do important things, and it's important that you share those with your state legislator. Some of them are not familiar with local government and what they do, and that's not a bad thing because you want a wide variety of people that run for office, but you need to impress upon them what, as a local official, you provide to the residents of their district, in some cases, and to the residents of the state, and to people coming into the state. So please get to know. I just ask you this. Please get to know your new legislator and impress upon them this important aspect of what you do. And then your follow-up to that is, we need help from the state in funding some of those services. And we can't do it all through local taxes. We need some help from the state because, after all, as the counties are in many cases an arm of the state in many of the programs that they do, and as I say, all local governments provide services that the state itself does not. So I implore you to please do that. And as local officials, I also encourage you to run for the State General Assembly at some point in time. It would be nice to have folks there that are very familiar with local governments and what you do. Now, it's not fun. I'm not going to tell you that, that it's fun to run for that type of office. Dale can probably tell you that it is strenuous and sometimes frustrating, and during certain periods of time there's lots of really hard work and tension involved in the whole thing. But I do encourage you, if you want to participate, to run for the State General Assembly. So that's enough of my pitch on that. I give that pitch every time, and I want to tell you I lost a good friend by doing that at one time, because he took me at my word and he ran for a seat in the General Assembly. And it was not a pleasant race. And in the end, he lost at the last minute and under not great circumstances. And I really felt badly about that. And every time I see him, I kind of almost want to step aside because I feel really badly that he ran and didn't get elected. And I feel that maybe I gave him a little too much encouragement. So, but think about it. Think about it. It would be helpful. What happened in 2011 and 2012? Well, we had a recession. I guess that's what we called it. And we did have a downturn in the economy. And revenues were rather dramatically impacted both at the state level and at the local level by that. And it kind of hit at an awkward time as many of you were preparing your budgets, and there was a lot of scrambling that had to be done to amend them to meet the need. Following up on that, because every unit of government was impacted by that, was the state budget cycle. And during that state budget cycle, the state found itself with a fairly substantial deficit, very substantial deficit. And they had to make that up. And part of what they made it up with were distributions that came to the local governments from a couple of sources. One, the local government fund, which has been in existence since right after the Depression in the 30s. And that was just a state revenue sharing with local governments that grew over time and provided to many of you a little added cushion, primarily to your general fund, and was helpful. But it was, part of it was used to fill that gap in the state budget, because in Ohio we can't operate on a deficit, not permitted to at any level. So the first year of the state budget included a 25% reduction in local government fund distributions, and the second year of the two-year budget was an additional 25% on top of that. So your local government fund got a significant cut. The next thing that occurred as a result of that budget during that time frame was the revisiting of the tangible personal property tax repeal reimbursement program. That program was supposed to last through 2018, and it was supposed to be a gradual phase down of the reimbursement that you got due to the loss of the tangible personal property tax revenues. In a short version of what happened is they accelerated that. I think that's the best way, and put some new factors in it that caused a number of communities to get no reimbursement whatsoever during those out years. So for some communities, that was another rather substantial loss that affected different communities in a different way. The third item, which hasn't happened yet, but will affect your revenues beginning in 2013, is the repeal of the estate tax. And that had a delayed effective date, and so on all estates now that occur after, I guess at 12:01 on January 1, 2013, there will be no estate tax levied on those. Now, the estate tax is important locally because it was a revenue that 80% of it went to local government, went to cities, villages, and townships, and 20% went into the state general fund. So in 2013, you will get some money from estates that were filed prior to 2013, but anything that occurred after that, that money will be gone. And again, that affects different communities in different ways depending upon the makeup of your community. I won't say anything more about it, but it was that is going to add on to the other revenues that have diminished over time. What that does is that places the burden, if you as a municipality want to continue your same level of services to your residents, that puts a bit of a burden on the local taxpayer. It puts in some cases more than a bit of a burden on your local taxpayers. Local taxpayers fund the schools, they fund the cities, they fund the villages, they fund they fund the county, they fund the special services that the county does, the various human services that they perform. And from now on, that burden is going to fall more on the local taxpayer if that same level of services is to be maintained. So that leads us to what we can expect in this upcoming General Assembly. Actually, we have two things to expect. One, we have what is called a lame duck session of the General Assembly, which will occur after the November election through to the end of the year, where the members of the General Assembly come back and clean up some of it is cleanup of unfinished business. Some of it is correction of things that need corrected, maybe because there was some haste in passing the legislation and they just need to make some technical corrections to it. And some of it are, sometimes in the lame duck session, you see issues that couldn't make it any other time, and maybe aren't the ones that some of us would like to see go through the General Assembly. So we have that to look forward to. And then starting January 1 of 2013, we start with a whole new General Assembly, and the state's two-year budget cycle begins again with the governor is first to propose this time it's a him, with his budget, and then the House takes it up, and then the Senate takes it up, and then everybody resolves their differences. But it doesn't go that fast. It's a fairly lengthy process, a lot of give and take, and the governor has already announced, at least in the papers in the middle of the state, that that it's going to be another tight budget. So don't expect much. And that was not a surprise. He did not mention specifically the funding of local government, but he has already asked his state agencies to take a look at their budgets for the possibility of reductions in the overall process. So we have heard less of the rumor that we had heard before, which was the other half of the local government fund was going to go away in this next budget cycle. Now that doesn't mean that that might not show up in the budget, but there has not been quite as much emphasis on that particular issue of eliminating the entire local government fund. And I think some of that has to do with the individual representatives and senators who have heard a lot from their local officials about how they are coping with the double whammy of state funding cuts and the general downturn in the economy that occurred just before those budget cuts. But it is important that we be very vigilant on that. I mean, even at half, the local government fund still provides you with some additional dollars for your general fund, and it would be a real hardship if the rest of it would go away. The other issue that we need to be very vigilant on, which is clearly going to come up, and it may come up sooner, like in the lame duck session, or it may come up in the beginning of the next session, and that is municipal income. It's being called municipal income tax reform. And municipal income tax, in some circles around the state, has taken on, in my estimation, the specter of the dreaded death tax, which is what they called the estate tax when they got rid of it. And there is a concerted effort to, through the guise of reform and uniformity, to reduce the viability of the municipal income tax as a revenue source by causing it to have certain tax breaks in it. And they have, initially they were talking about the state being the collector of the municipal income tax, and that has kind of died down. thanks to all of you who passed resolutions and sent letters. And there were lots of them because I got the copies. And so I thank you all for doing that. They have taken a step back from the state collecting your municipal income tax and maybe giving it back to you in a timely manner. And but what is going to be proposed are some really fairly significant changes which will have differing revenue implications depending upon the type of community that you are. I don't see any of what's in there, and we've been working on it. We were invited to be a part of the working group, I think only so that they can say that we were invited to be a part of the working group. That what is being proposed is something that will make it more difficult for you to enforce and audit your local income taxes, and it will cut out a number of people from having to pay it. So that is ongoing right now, and those meetings are sometimes a little tense. And we hope that the outcome is a little better than how it started. But the question is when is that outcome going to be, and are they going to speed it up and have it in the lame duck session, or are they going to wait until next year and do a little more thoughtful consideration of it to take into account the downsides connected with it. Another issue that I think you're going to have to deal with, and it is much more important up in this. It's important statewide. I shouldn't say it's much more important up here. It will get much more attention from your constituents up here, and probably from you as local officials, and that is the issue of what's going to happen to the turnpike. And that is a priority. I mean, the governor has stated that that is something he really wants to deal with, is whether he leases it or sells it or Plan C, which we haven't heard what a Plan C is going to be, but I think, you know, he's kind of leaving his options open on that. And I know that, as I say, I know that up here, upstate, the turnpike is much more critical, and you pay more attention to it than, for instance, they do down in the Cincinnati area or over in the St. Clairsville area, or, you know, frankly, even where I live in the greater Columbus area. But the state is looking at it from a revenue standpoint and from how they can maximize the turnpike as an important revenue producer and economic development tool for the state itself. So that one is going to come fairly soon, I believe. They have been studying it during the year, and I don't know whether it will probably be a separate piece of legislation connected to the transportation budget. Maybe it'll be a standalone one, depending upon whether it's a lease or a sale and how they authorize it. But the impact here will be felt much more than it will in other parts of the state. I can't imagine how some of the communities that are real close are going to, if the tolls go up, if it's privatized, which is one of the things, which is one of the issues that really worries folks. That the traffic that would normally be on the turnpike turns out to be going through your communities on streets and roads which are not equipped to handle some of that heavier traffic. So that's an issue. It's coming. So please be prepared. If you love it, fine, be prepared for that. If you don't love it, also be prepared for that. And have your ducks in line with facts and figures that you've gathered. That's another thing you have to be prepared for. Supposedly, there's going to be something happening with school funding. There's always something happening with school funding, isn't there, Dale? Okay. I don't remember a session that was not an issue, whether it got acted upon in a comprehensive manner or not. School funding always came up, and it's an expensive issue. And that's going to be put in the mix of this quote, another tight budget. So I think what I'm trying to tell you is beware and get to know your legislators and impress upon them that you're a part of all this, and that you have needs, and that the people in your community, the taxpayers and the voters, have needs in the community also. And just because the state budget gap has been filled, and there's a proposal also to reduce the personal income tax at the state level, and whether or not that will occur is kind of up in the air, but it is something the governor would like to do. He's talked about that for quite some time. That you have local taxpayers that may have to pick up a little more of the burden, and in some cases a lot more of the burden at the local level, just to keep your basic services at the same level that you have them now. One of the solutions that's being proposed for all this is shared services. That's going to save you. I don't believe that, but I just thought I would bring that up because that's what I'm told. Shared services are just going to be the panacea here. I mean, it's going to save you so much money, and you're going to be able to do so many more things that this is going to make up for a lot of what has taken place already. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, what I found out, or actually I reinforced what I already knew, is local governments have been doing shared services for a long time. They just haven't been advertised. You do them because they make sense at the local level. And you do them when they make sense and when they are going to be economical. You don't do them for a big splashy press release or anything like that. So shared services have been going on for a long time. Some of them small, some of them pretty big. My favorite, it's not my favorite, but I always just like to tell it. We've got a couple of these shared services, one up in this area and one down in the Columbus area. And in Columbus, it's called the City of Columbus Department of Utilities. City of Columbus Department of Utilities provides water and sewer service throughout Franklin County, with the exception of 2 communities, and in some of the surrounding counties. And they do it just through contracts. That's a shared service. All those communities did not have to build a water treatment plant or a sewage treatment plant. They just contract with Columbus for that, and they have different arrangements on who does the upkeep and maintenance and that. Up here, City of Cleveland has a fairly substantial water department, and a number of communities up in this area are serviced by that water department. That's a shared service, and it's been going on for a long time. And up here, you created a regional sewer district. I mean, whether you love it or don't love it, you have done that. And it's been in operation for a number of years. And as I say, local governments have been doing those. I mean, some of the shared services are as simple as sharing a snowplow between two small communities, or doing training, having one of the communities provide training for your safety forces and offering that training for other communities in the area. There are any number of these type services that have been going on. So when they talk to you about these shared services, please impress upon them that you've been doing this for a long time, you know how to do it, and it's probably going to do the best I think you can say from the shared services, that it's a long-term savings, and that savings comes from a smaller growth in your expenditures that you would normally have expended on some of these services that you're doing. Very seldom do you get to just slash the budget because of some of these shared services that you enter into. I always like to talk about the situation. A friend of mine that used to be the director of the Township Association, he used to get very upset about the shared services aspect, especially in the police and fire departments. And his comment always made sense about that. He says, you know, if you combine these three townships into one fire department, he said, you still have to have the same number of people, you still have to have most of the same equipment, because you haven't moved all these people out of your township. You still have to service all these different properties. All those properties are there, all those people are still there. And that doesn't change just because you combine your service. So your savings is not what everybody envisions. Maybe you get rid of 2 fire chiefs or 2 police chiefs, but maybe you have to have a couple of additional assistant fire chiefs or police chiefs or safety service people. And I always used to enjoy him trying to make that argument before the General Assembly, because unfortunately folks would tend to kind of glaze over when he was talking about that. So, but bear in mind that is part of the case. So it's going to be an interesting session next year, because number 1, tight budget. Number 2, turnpike. Number 3, what's going to happen to funding for all the other local governments, and whatever else comes up, because there are hundreds of bills that are introduced each session. Now, not all of them see action, and not all of them are critical to your everyday life. But there are enough of them that are very, very important, and they're important to the running of the state, and they're important to the running of your local government. So get to know your legislator. Share with them your concerns. Whatever those concerns are, get to know them and share with them your concerns. Call them on the phone. Invite them to a council meeting. Write them a letter. Send them a resolution. That would be my suggestion on how you can become a part of the process without actually running for the office, but you can become a part of the process and influence it. So the same way the citizens in your community come to you and say, you know, we need these sidewalks fixed. Or, when are you going to fill the pothole in front of my house? That's always the good one. And this is the same type of an interaction. It's just on a little bigger scale, but the same type, and I find that local officials are really pretty good at that. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to open it up for questions, and it's the other savior that's kind of hanging out there for all this, and that's the casinos. And we keep hearing about how the casino revenue is going to make up for a lot of these losses. And in some cases, it might make up for some of it. We have only seen one distribution of casino revenue that's out there. And it surprised me. There was actually a pretty substantial amount of money from just 2 casinos. And the biggest problem I saw with it is only 8 cities got any of that money. Now, those 8 cities are members of my organization, and I love them all dearly, and those that have the casinos in them are probably going to have some additional expenses connected with that. But all the counties got money, all 88 of them. I'm not saying this negatively, but all the counties did get money from it. And it'll be interesting to see how much is raised as the other 2 cities open their casinos. Now, it has already been reported that during the month of August, and that was probably because everybody was on vacation, that the casino revenues really dropped. But that was just 1 month. And that was because in some areas they're opening up the racetracks and putting in slot machines, so there's a little bit of competition. A lot of this, with the big revenue splurge at the beginning, I think has to do with the newness of it. People going to see what it's like, see how their area developed this asset. And that leads me to the next piece of legislation that I wanted to talk about, which is, and whether or not it'll be enacted upon, I don't know, Senate Bill 364. Now, this is a piece of legislation that is going to have a little bit of pitting the interests of one type of local government against another type of local government. As I said, all the counties got casino revenue, and only 8 of the cities got casino revenue. This rewrites the local government fund distribution formula. And it rewrites it in a way that many, many of the counties lose. It caps the amount that counties can get of the local government fund at a level that will cut a large number of the counties off, and that money will be put into the pot to be distributed to all the other units of government in the county that are eligible for the local government fund. The formula that's proposed in the bill is the alternate formula that is used in Franklin County. And it was a formula that was developed a number of years ago that in Franklin County, I guess everybody's happy with it because nobody has made a big move to change that local formula in Franklin County. But it takes into consideration some different things than the original statutory formula. And what it does is you almost have to start all over again. Even if you have a local formula, which up here you do, I know, you will have to, unless you can vote again on it locally amongst all the communities, that you will have to revert to the state formula for a period of time until you can determine whether or not you're going to have another local formula. But under those local formulas, the question arises is can you get the counties back to where they were before, which in some cases folks don't want the counties to go back to where they were before because all 88 of them got casino revenue. That's the argument that's being used. The casino revenue is being thrown up for all sorts of different ventures that are going to be proposed in this General Assembly. So that has been introduced. The primary sponsor is Senator Seitz from the Hamilton County area. Pardon? Please note that that was former Senator and Representative Miller who said that. Bill is a lot, I call him Bill. Bill is a lot bigger than I am. He's one of these great big tall guys with a great big expanse of arms, and sometimes he's delightful and sometimes he yells at you. But this is his proposal, and the co-sponsor is Senator Eklund from this area. So you all might want to speak with him about that. As I say, it probably, we haven't seen the numbers yet. They have been asked to generate actual numbers as to, surprise, surprise, as to what would happen in each county given this new formula. And the ones we have seen so far as not the big 8 cities, but everybody else doesn't seem to lose anything on it, and in some cases gains a little bit because the money that the counties lose go back into the overall pot of the local government fund to be distributed to the other cities, villages, townships, and in some couple cases the park districts. So this is something that is pitting local governments against one another rather than causing them to work real closely together, and is going to have much more of an impact on one of the units of local government as opposed to all the rest. So that is out there. Whether or not they're going to take it up in those 4 to 5 weeks after the election, as I say, it's been officially introduced, but all the figures aren't in yet. So they may hold off on dealing with it until all of those figures come in. I know that the County Commissioners Association would be happier if they would hold off till all those figures come in, so you can have a good accounting of who loses, who are the big losers and who are the big winners, because there probably won't be any big winners, but there will be some big losers in that whole process. So that is the other issue. It's tied to both the local government fund and it's also tied to the casino revenue. It doesn't say in the bill that it's tied to the casino revenue, but that's what it's tied to. It's trying to address the fact that the county's got more money than everybody else on from the casino distribution. So those are some of the fun things. I know you asked me to bring you good news. Well, we've had nice weather lately.
So, Mrs. Lincoln, besides that, how was the play?
and I will say that down at my house, my cable went out, and you know, it was really nice. I had about 50 fewer political advertisements that I had to listen to on TV, because you know, sometimes they get a little repetitive and sometimes a little harsh, depending upon how you feel about it. So that's kind of my report, and I appreciate you asking me up here. Now I want you to ask me some questions. Okay. Yeah, somebody is going to walk around with the microphone. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
My question is, the municipal income tax that the state is attempting to collect for us, has that died? Is it in committee? And how did that even start? What would give them the impetus to think they could collect local taxes and then maybe, yes, no, maybe so, distribute them at their leisure, or whatever the plan for it would have been? And then on another note, the monies from the racetracks, is that going to the state too, or?
That's going to the state.
Okay.
And that, as I understand it, is not going to be distributed like the casino dollars. It goes right to the state.
Okay. But
Okay, that was an easy one to answer. Let me go back to the first part of your question.
Has that died? Is that issue still alive and well? And is it in committee? What's going on?
Okay, there is no bill on that subject. The idea was floated, and it was floated by a coalition formed by the Ohio Society of CPAs. And the member, let me read to you the member organizations in that, and you'll know what we are confronted with in dealing with this issue. The Ohio Society of CPAs has for a long time had in their legislative policy statement, which a lot of groups have legislative policy statements, and they have talked about, number one, uniformity in the administration and collection of the municipal income tax. But as a part of that, they have this one little phrase that talks about one of the solutions to that would be to have the state collect it, because that would cause uniformity. This year they got very, very active on that issue. They formed a coalition, and the member organizations are the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, the NFIB, the major city chambers of commerce, the State Bar Association, the Manufacturers Association, the Medical Association, the Home Builders Association, the Contractors Association, the Trucking Association, the Realtors, the Insurance Institute, the Restaurant Association, the Ohio Produce Growers and Marketers Association, and the Greater Ohio Policy Center. I mean, that's a lot of groups. And quite honestly, that's a lot of groups that contribute big bucks to the members of the General Assembly, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying that because you're going to put this on your website, but that's okay. I get in trouble for things I say all the time. The municipalities reacted to that as I assumed they would react to that, which is we don't want the state to get their hands on our money because we are afraid, number one, in a timely manner. You get your money every week, every 2 weeks, every month. We'll get that if the state collected it. And the other one, the other suspicion is will you get it all? And what would happen in a situation like we just had, where the state had a multi-billion-dollar shortfall and the state was collecting the $5 billion in local income tax and hanging on to it? That was always a concern, that might be part of it. Local officials reacted wonderfully. You passed resolutions. You wrote letters. You did letters to the editor. I saw a couple of public TV sessions where local officials debated this issue. You really did a good job, and you really got the attention of a lot of people. And as that discussion progressed, the issue of the state collecting it moved down in the priority list. The issue of uniformity and changing the tax treatment on certain segments of taxpayer groups and on businesses rose higher to the top. And right now, there are, in that whole discussion, a number of issues that are being discussed that would affect different communities in a different way, depending upon the makeup of your community. If you're an all-residential community, if you're basically an employer, city, or village, which is people coming into the room home every night, the implications, you can't say affect everybody in exactly the same way. And depending upon what one is, you'll have big winners and big losers in certain areas, and they may not balance each other out. But what has cropped up in this whole discussion that is going on is giving the state a role in some of your administration of your local income tax. Now, you know, in my mind, that's kind of a segue into state collection at some time in the future. But the discussions are talking now about having the state tax commissioner have something to say about it, and about creating some kind of a super agency to hear complaints about whether or not you are uniformly administering your tax, and developing a single tax form and other issues like that. So that, and making these state administrative rules. Now, that one scares me. Because if you dealt at all with the state administrative rule process, it's difficult. And everything occurs in Columbus, so it's not real convenient. Do you folks up here, or to folks down in Cincinnati? I mean, the communities in Columbus can respond, but the rest of you, it's not quite as convenient and not quite as easy. And it doesn't go through a vote of the legislature. So, you know, I feel more comfortable. You're going to have a law on something, let the lawmakers make the law. So that is something that is propped up in the process, which is kind of interjecting the state in kind of a sideways manner into your municipal income tax administration. So that's what's happening with that. It's not going to go away. It's not going to go away this time. Sorry. Questions?
I do. I don't know if you'll be able to hear me, and I don't know what this is for. I don't need to stand up. I'm going to give you a little bit of a story, and then I have a question, and I think Dale Miller might be able to answer part of this, because I know County Council was talking about this. Everybody in this room that is a homeowner pays or has the benefit of the 2.5% rollback. Now, there are a lot of vacant homes, there are a lot of bank-owned homes, there are a lot of quit claims, and there's a lot of transfers that are going on with that rollback still on that property. Years ago, it was introduced as a, I don't want to call it a luxury, but just as a, it's not something that you have to apply for every year. There was a House bill years ago that was introduced that I guess it was too much of a pain to apply for this, as you have to do the homestead exemption every single year. So what happens is the state reimburses the county for those funds. Now, if those funds aren't meant to be attached to a lot of these properties, then the state could be saving a lot of revenue by doing this. So my proposal, and tell me if I'm wrong, Dale, didn't Mike Foley try to introduce a bill to have the rollback come back as a yearly application so that it could be purged for an entire year, because taxes are a year behind, which means we have a whole entire year to catch people to actually reapply, to get them into that mode to do that, which will, in essence, in my mind, save the state money. I work in Cleveland in a very small ward, and this was probably about 7 years ago, because I'm really passionate about this. We did a study in my neighborhood, and we found, because the normal rollback for you guys, just so you understand, is anywhere between $25 and $40. To us, it's nothing. But when you couple that with the amount of housing that you could find that's actually enjoying this rollback illegally, I came up with, I think it was $35,000 in one ward in the city of Cleveland that is not heavily rental property, mostly owner occupied. And if that's just one little tiny section of the state of Ohio, if you would do this throughout the entire state, how much money would you save, and why isn't anything being done about that? It's just my question. Thank you.
I know that, as you said, I believe that Representative Foley did attempt to do something about that. But that is, I will say, not a big issue on the minds of the General Assembly right now. It is one of those, quote, local issues. Anything to do with the whole housing area is very difficult to get much sympathy.
But you know what? It is their problem, and I don't want to.
Oh, I understand
They
that.
don't have the authority to change that rule. They do.
That's correct.
Sorry.
Well, maybe we need to ask them again.
I can help on that.
You can help, thank you.
Yeah.
You guys have tried, you guys dropped the ball. What's his name? The one councilman from Dan Brady was trying to get the research that I did. Whatever happened with that? Because county council is trying to do something, and you guys dropped it too because you found out it was a state issue.
Mike Foley and I both introduced legislation in Columbus trying to deal with this legislation in various ways, and it's one of those things where the deeper you get into it, it got quite complex. But the essence of it is that it would require a whole lot of action on behalf being done by the county treasurers. But the primary beneficiary is the state, because the state would save on the cleanup of the rolls, and what really needs to happen is a cooperation between the state and the counties. It's not either one or the other. The state would need to authorize the county treasurers and to provide some reimbursement for the costs involved. So, and then to require the county treasurers to go through a process to clean up these rolls, which can be done. So, yes, it's something that's much
Can I
needed.
ask you one other question then? Where did the money come from with all the advertising that went on when they changed the homestead exemption a few years back?
Jill, could you repeat the question to the microphone, because that records it for the tape, so that when we webcast it, it'll be on record.
Okay, but I would like to hear the question again, because I wasn't sure what the question is.
Okay, where did the money come from when the county treasurer had to send out all those notices when the homestead exemption changed a few years back? And it wasn't that long ago when the homestead changed, and we had to notify every single homeowner that was eligible for that to let them know that now it wasn't income-based, it was just because you were of age, and it went into the water bill, and it went into your tax bill. Who paid for that?
I'm sorry, but I don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
And I don't know.
Turnpike. Now, you said that the state was considering leasing or privatizing the turnpike. Is that the services, the maintenance of the highways and all of that? Is that the entire shebang as far as what's going to happen?
Okay, did everybody hear his question? This is on the privatization or whatever, plan A, B, or C, whatever they're going to do with it. All of those things that you brought up will have to be included specifically in the legislation, number one. If they lease it, it would be covered in the agreement plus the legislation. If they sell it, my guess would be just in the legislation. I know that in discussions with the governor's staff, that they have heard the concerns that some people have about the fact that will the maintenance go down, and will it have to be picked up someplace else? That's an issue that they have mentioned they have to think about as to whether they're going to sell or lease this very valuable property. The other is something to deal with the issue of letting the free market deal with the tolls as opposed to having some kind of a cap on the tolls being raised and to what level. They understand that that is a concern of people. I think they are also beginning to realize that there is a concern, unfortunately not expressed statewide, but expressed up in this area, that depending upon what happens to the turnpike, depending upon what the Plan A, B, and C might be, is how are they going to treat the local governments through which the turnpike goes, who might end up being the recipients on their streets of some of that or all of that turnpike traffic if the people who use it now, or the vehicles who use it now, decide they don't want to use it anymore, and they'll avoid whatever the tolls are, or perhaps if the maintenance isn't good and they don't want to drive over it, that they're going to drive off of the turnpike and use some of the surface streets. So nobody has really seen a plan, and nobody has seen, there may be out there, but nobody has really revealed it. So I really can't speak for them as to how they're going to address all those issues.
Okay, well, I guess my kind of another question is then what's the purpose of doing it? Is it because the state is in a deficit as far as trying to, the upkeep of it? I know it was a big discussion as far as salary of toll booth operators, but I thought that was kind of made up between easy passes and stuff like that. I don't understand why the state would lease or privatize something that to me is mismanaged.
Well, if they sell it, they're going to get a big check. I don't know how else to describe what's going to happen. If they sell the turnpike, which is what happened in Indiana, I believe that's the example that is always used. The state of Indiana got a big check, and that's one of the issues. If they lease it, I'm assuming that it would be like most leases, that those payments would be spread out over the terms of the lease. But in any case, the state will get money from what they look at as a very valuable state asset from the private sector.
Mike, man.
Microphone, we got a couple questions up here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Chicago, just as an aside, Chicago did it with all the bridges and toll roads, privatized them. But I go business there regularly. Is there any action by the state to engage in raising or changing the oil and gas royalties? And if they are, where's the funding going to expect to go to?
Okay, this is the issue of what we're going to get out of all the fracking that's taking place out over in the eastern part of the state. And, well, it has been discussed that the state severance tax be raised because that's what's coming up out of the ground. And when that was floated, it got kind of a negative reaction. That was the administration opposing raising the severance tax to generate more funds, and the legislative branch not being overly enthusiastic about that approach. So the discussions are going on about what you do with that. Now, part of that is tied to the fact that the administration would really like to reduce the personal income tax in the state of Ohio, the state personal income tax. And part of that proposal to raise the severance tax was kind of talked about in terms of replacement dollars so that the personal income tax could be lowered. But that's kind of an ongoing discussion, and I don't think the minds met yet on that. All right, that's the best I can answer you, but it has been talked about. Okay.
Can I get back to the turnpike?
Turnpike, sure.
The state has balanced its budget. You say that the state sells the turnpike, they're going to get a big check. Correct me if I'm wrong, they get a pretty decent check every year as it stands now. Or is there any chance that the Ohio Turnpike Commission has run at a deficit in the last how many years?
You know, I honestly can't answer. I can't answer that. I know that the turnpike revenues, there are a number of issues tied to the turnpike, but the turnpike revenues are really obligated to the turnpike. I mean, they're basically earmarked for the turnpikers. If they sell it, where does that check go?
The turnpike, the state of Ohio sees no money from the Ohio Turnpike Commission. Everything is reinvested.
Oh, no, well, it is, I think. I'm not sure. Maybe you have seen those.
Yes.
Do you think it's yes, that it all stays with the turnpike? Well, it's like all highway user revenues. You can only use them for one thing, and that's highway purposes. But I'm not sure what they have used the turnpike for. What they have used it for is they have used their bonding authorities to supplement other state programs. The turnpike has rather, they have, I guess, a more favorable bonding authority, or I don't know whether it's easier or more favorable, but it has been used to fund other things because it was either easier to use it or they didn't have to impact the state debt limit. And I think I'm correct on that. So that's where the state has benefited more financially from the turnpike than it has from the actual turnpike revenues from the tolls.
I'm not positive, but I believe that way back when, knew the authorization to allow the turnpike to continue to collect tolls because from its origination, I believe that the tolls were for the purpose of paying it off, the debt payment. And then sometime after the time it had ended, they had to pass legislation to allow it to continue to generate the income, saying that the state couldn't afford to maintain the roads and everything, so it was to allow it to again have its own self-sufficiency. So that's probably why they get generating even more revenue, because whatever the cost was has already been paid for, and now they're just generating revenue to allegedly maintain it and provide the snow and all of those. So it's made it a big attractive asset now because of the fact that it doesn't really have a construction debt. It just has the regular operational expenses. And I don't know how long the term was to extend the toll collection, but you know, they're probably now seeing if it's 5 or 10 years, I don't know. So maybe this is one of the reasons that made it an attractive asset for the state to consider to sell or lease.
Well, and as I say, it is retiring some other debt.
Debt, right.
That's why it was extended, because in the original turnpike legislation, when the original debt to build the turnpike was paid off, the tolls were to go away.
That's what I understand.
Yeah, but that was of course changed as they got close to that.
And they keep acquiring it.
Anything else?
I want to switch gears a little bit.
Okay, I'm trying to keep within my 1 hour limit.
I'll try
So
to
I won't bore you to death.
I want to switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
In looking at the state as regions. And would we be better off, since we have a new county government in a form that we can do this with, of starting to look at what's in counties as systems, the roadways as one system, and putting it in sectors across. The other part of the system are the sewers and the water emanating out from the city of Cleveland, then coming through the watersheds. If we look at these as systems, we should start doing our proposals, at least on a county level, and take a sector in part of that system, which would then go beyond operating. We do very well at this operating. We're looking at the planning level now. We're also looking, we look beyond that. There are properties such as Randall Mall up here that would be great industrial sites. But we need to get the county-wide and everybody in action, because everybody gets a piece of this. It happens in the county. But I think with the state, if we come down as a region, not as individual cities, we go down state as a region, we come down with a larger voice. In Galbraith's terms, countervailing force.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, the more of you that get together and come down and ask for a specific something, whatever that is, for instance, your divergent group that you have come down, the more impact you're going to have.
What I'm saying is infrastructure is a great cost to individual cities.
Oh, it is.
And we dig the same hole for water, for sewer, for gas, even the gas lines come in here, utilities overhead, they're all part of systems. And if you look at where the roadways and things are constructed, you can lay it on a map and you'll see systems. And you need to divide it into sectors and start working as sectors. And then you'll do the dig as a group rather than as individuals where they can split. Well, I, for instance, in Cleveland, right down there by University Circle, one of the alleged landmarks, we've got a bicycle lane that's been gone over well over summer. It's all blocked with barrels. It's paved now. It's been that way for months. Why? But if you have a big group in there, you have a big command. And you can get at some of these companies that do these things. It doesn't look like they're doing it in their spare time.
No, I think that has possibilities. And when you come to the whole issue of your streets and your roads, bear in mind that those revenues, at least at the local level, are no longer sufficient to take care of your local streets and roads. And they're not going to get any better. They're not going to get any better. So there has to be some alternative. So you're thinking.
Do we have time for one more question?
Whatever you want to do, that's fine.
Okay. Paul?
No,
Thank you. This is part question and part just answering something that was alluded to, and that was that the casino funds are the big savior. Okay, and they're really not. Okay, I don't know how if everybody knows how they're divided, but 51% of the casino profits goes to the county, so that is a big chunk. But that gets divided by population, so it's being divided not equally, but by 88 entities. Okay, so when you divide the money of the casino profits by 88 entities, it gets kind of smaller. Now, in our particular case, Cuyahoga County is the largest, has the largest population. So 11% of the casino profits, 11% of the 51 goes to Cuyahoga County. Now, another part of this, though, is that any city of over 80,000, any county that has the largest city of over 80,000 gets half of the county's money. So in our particular case, our 11% is split with Cleveland because it's over 80,000. By the way, the city of Parma gets screwed on this deal because they're 82,000 and they don't get any part of it. But that's the way the amendment, the state amendment was written, it was any city, the greatest city over 80,000 gets split with the county. So the county splits half of its money with the city of Cleveland. The other thing that people don't really understand is that 30%, or it might be 30 or a little bit more than 30% goes to schools. All schools, all public schools, by the number of students. So you can see that we're talking 51% for the counties, 30% or might be 33%, but I know it's 34.
Yeah, I got that.
34% goes to the schools. And then the host city, each of the host cities get 5%. So you have Toledo, you have Cleveland, you have Columbus, and you have Cincinnati. So they're getting, so that's how this is all divided. So it really isn't the savior, because once you start splitting this all down, to have impact, if we just divided this by every municipality, you can see that there would not be that much that really, in comparison to the elimination of the estate tax, which many of our cities relied on this for improvements, capital improvements. It's pretty devastating. So just thought I would clear that up, because a lot of people don't understand how that limit is decided.
Well, and as I said, I use savior not seriously, let's say. It is just, because it is going to raise a large amount of money. The casinos are projected to raise a large amount of money. It is split up so much that there's not one place that gets a significant amount or a replacement amount for what may have been lost due to other things. Now, you know, whether you like gambling or not, we can only hope that these are enormously successful, so that some of that money does flow back to local governments who have lost money over the past couple of general assemblies. So, I want to thank you all for